All right, welcoming on, and this is not the first time ever, but it's the first time via Zoom, the one and only, one of the greatest Leafs of all time. We're so excited. It's Matt Sundin, baby. Let's go. Matt, where are you joining us from, first off? That's a very nice-looking living room.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm in Stockholm, actually. It's we're 6 hours ahead of you guys, and thanks for the great introduction. Feel welcome.
Excellent. This is your favorite podcast that you're doing today, right?
Absolutely. Number one.
Good.
So Matt, obviously, we're big Leaf fans. We know the history, that sort of thing. Let's talk about this book. You are a guy who is, at least the perception of you with the public is you're a notoriously private person. So when you come out with a book like this, are there any challenges to talking about yourself, which is something that you traditionally maybe haven't been as comfortable with?
Well, I think, at age 53, and, I've been asked a few years about doing the memoirs. And last summer, I figured if I don't do it now, well, I still remember, not everything about my career, but parts of it and childhood and growing up. I thought it was the right time. My kids our daughter's 12. We have a son that turns 10 here in a couple of weeks. And our youngest boy is 7. And they look at me like they don't know I played hockey or anything. So I hope in 5 or so years, they're going to be able to read the book and say, oh, our dad was okay. He was a hockey player, right?
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully there'll be something for them to read. And it was the time now. Otherwise, I think it might not get done, I think.
Reading through your book, I need to know if you kept score. Did you lose more teeth playing soccer as a child or in your NHL career?
Well, for sure, playing in the NHL at the end of the day. But I did lose my teeth first time in grade 1, actually playing soccer in the winter and slipped into a friend's head. And my mom wasn't happy with that. It was just the new teeth you get at that age, and they were both gone. So that was tough, but more than hockey for sure.
Okay.
Matt, it's interesting that the book is so full of great stories, but something that really stuck out to me as something that it seems to be emotional and visceral for you, is your absolute vehemence about the fighter position, about the enforcer position. And you talk about a story that happened in Buffalo during the third round in the 98-99 series in the third round. And I remember that series, Matt. I cried at the end of it in Game 6. Like I was in tears because I was 10 years old, and you can't imagine how much that team meant to me. You can't imagine.
I get it.
And I gotta say, I thought this really stuck out because I had no idea. I knew you were friends with Ty Domi, but there was a writer at the time, who will remain nameless, who wrote a story about how Ty should have been scratched because Buffalo was scratching Rob Ray. And Ty confronted him in a towel in the dressing room. And I wanted to know what you recollect from that story, because obviously it's in the book a little bit. But also I want to talk about your friendship with Ty, because there is a staunch defense in that book that you could be you because he was himself and he laid his body on the line. And how important was that to your career and your success in Toronto and elsewhere?
Well, guys, and I think you guys follow the game all the time. And as a player over my 18 years, you come to realize that Ty, the Wade Belaks, the tough guys in the league, by far have also the toughest job, right? They're expected to come out and fight. They have to fight each other. And, just imagine having to go to work and knowing that you have to fight someone at that night and you play games every other night. So, you come to realize when you're in the league that they carry and no one can actually enjoy that, go out and do that every night. It's a tough job, and they deserve the respect from not only players, obviously fans and everybody, but it's a tough job to do. And Ty, you look at the years I played with Ty and even before that, other guys, I was able, and Ty keeps reminding me even today, you remember, you didn't have any concussions thanks to me. And he has a point. He has a point, but it's a needed role. It allowed me to be able to do my job on the ice and not being taken advantage of from opponent's team. And the guys are still out there. They're doing the job, and it's very important. I have the much respect and the toughest job in the game.
And it's interesting because I talked to somebody who was in the room when that happened, and he said it was an unbelievable sight because there were 60 people that were non-team in the dressing room.
6-0?
6-0 non-team. So it's it's all the guys who played and then all the media following them, and it's Buffalo media, it's Toronto media, it's intense. Mats, I look at the bond that you and Ty have, and then I think about Max Domi specifically and how much it means to him to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. Like before the first round last year, he's putting a sizzle reel out. He always mentions you. He wore your number in Montreal. Obviously, he can't wear it here because it's retired. But I look at that friendship, and that's now multi-generational. And I've heard that you had Max over to your house when you guys were in Sweden last year. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and when we played, I followed Max playing hockey since he was 8 and 9 years old. I remember we went out in between games. Me and Ty went out to watch him playing minor hockey in Toronto. He was in our dressing room, and with our team. And for me to have him over at the house here in November when Toronto was in Stockholm for the games, and watch him grow into a man, the career he's having, and be able to sign a long-term deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's going to be a great asset for the team. I know he's going to play his heart out for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'm extremely happy for him.
There's a story in Ty Domi's book that I thought was so funny, and he glossed over it because you mentioned the stress of having to fight every second night, and he would have 2 big bowls of pasta, and he would try to have his pregame nap, but he would never be able to sleep. And then he found out after he retired that the reason he wasn't able to sleep is he was diagnosed with a gluten intolerance.
Oh, wow.
Is that Ty Domi just completely summed up to you? Is that the Ty Domi that we don't know?
That's too funny. But I guess I don't know if it was just the gluten. I think he was so intense, and I mean, I'm sure he's gluten intolerant, obviously. But I mean, that job, go out and do his job, and knowing that he had to prepare, he had to see what team we're playing. Is it Berube and the Flyers, or is it McCarthy, or is it whoever, Probert, or all these tough big boys that he had to face on an everyday basis. I'm sure there was more reason than just gluten intolerant why he had a tough time falling asleep in pregame nap.
Yeah. And so Matt's, I'll be honest, this is not the first biography I've read of you. There was a biography for kids on the history of Matt Sundin. Done. Do you remember this kid's book? I had this kid's book, and basically,
I've seen it.
You've seen it. So it said that the thing that you missed the most. This is how simple this was. I mean, grade 1 reading this, going, this is the greatest thing I've ever read in my life. And it said that when you left Sweden, one of the things that you missed the most were Swedish meatballs, and for whatever reason, that's been the thing that stuck with me for years. Is that the truth? When you got to Quebec, where you're like, damn, the meatballs here are just not up to par.
I can't recall. Really.
I knew it was going to be a stupid question, but
exactly. But the meatballs are good, but I think they're very good in Toronto as well.
How much do you think playing sports like bandy, which for a lot of people in North America they don't really we don't play it as much here. Though. Bandy is like a hockey adjacent dry land sort of sport. How much do you think that played into your skill development growing up?
Well, I tell you this, the Swedish, Ice Hockey Federation, they did a study on Nicholas Lidström, Peter Forsberg, myself, and Marcus Näslund, and they spent a year is there any common ground for these kids? They became the stars they did in the National Hockey League and in the Swedish national team. And one thing that stuck out that when I look at it today as a parent, I have kids in all kinds of sports and different activities, is that we had on average every week 30 hours of like spontaneous sport, like not including like the hockey practice, but bandy another thing, and that's just an enormous amount of playing around like with different games, right? Whether it's soccer or hockey, and then we went to different practices. So bandy was obviously helped me a lot with the skating. So I could have a hockey practice in the before lunch, and then I went to play a bandy game in the afternoon. It was all just for fun, but fantastic workouts, and obviously helped me with my skating.
Years ago, we asked you about, because you got your eyes over there in Sweden and you're watching some hockey over there. Who's a player that we got to keep our eye on? And you talked about this guy, didn't really pan out, named Elias Pettersson. Turns out you were right. He's pretty good. So what I need to know all these years later is who's next?
It's a good question. I mean, you guys know, but Sweden, hockey is a big sport in Sweden, not like Canada. There's a lot of competition now, drawing kids. I think there's 80,000 registered hockey players in Sweden.
Wow.
Smaller than Ontario. It's 11 million people maybe. So the hockey program has been very good. I mean, you've seen the draft. There's always high picks coming out of Sweden, but there's a defenseman right now in Skellefteå, Sundin Pellikka. He's a high draft pick, I think. He's still over here. He's going to be a good defenseman eventually, and but it's not like it's been before. I think Swedish hockey has to keep working on having a great program to be able to keep producing and trying to keep up with the Canada and the US and obviously Russia in terms of bringing up new talent, right? So, but it still looks good still, and it's a work in process. But there's one name for you that I think he's going to have a great career.
Another name I want to bring up is an older name, and one from what I understand, meant a lot to you, is Borje Salming. Obviously, Borje, he made a tremendous impact in Toronto, just like you did, and he meant a lot to Swedish ice hockey. I know that, or at least from what I understand, you used to attend his camps when you were growing up. Is that true? Yeah.
Yep.
And so,
well,
yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. No, I went to his. He had a hockey school up in Kiruna, the small mining town above the Arctic Circle, his hometown. Actually, when I got traded to Toronto Maple Leafs, I was there for his hockey school. It was such a fluke coincidence, but he was able to tell me what it means to wear the blue and white and represent the Toronto Maple Leafs, and so he was great help for me, like as a mentor during my career. When I got asked to be the captain for Toronto Maple Leafs, Borje was the first guy I called, and he said, "Mats, you have to accept. It's one of the biggest honors you can have wearing the C." And he regretted obviously not accepting because he got asked playing, and so it was an easy choice for me. But he, except from the hockey part, he was a great friend, and me and my brothers, we still go fishing. This year was the 30th year in a row we go fishing to a place outside Kiruna where Borje helped me go. So he was a big impact in my career.
And when you look at sort of his impact on Swedish hockey, just in general, him and Hammarström and some of the other guys that came over, but Borje was sort of the big one in Toronto and really league wide. How is he viewed in Sweden? Because he's still a god here, right? When I was there, the last game that he was able to be in Toronto, when they had him out on the ice and dropping the puck, and Toronto, unfortunately, right now has a bit of a quiet arena, but that night was extremely loud, and it was for him. And I just wonder how do people in Sweden view Borje?
Well, I think with his passing, it was devastating. I think he's been viewed on as an icon because, just like you said, he really made NHL managements, coaches realize that, hang on a second, Swedish players maybe can play over here. They're pretty good. And Borje Salming is the reason why my generations and beyond were able to be accepted and play bigger roles in North America. And also with the terrible loss of Borje, I'm on the board on his ALS Foundation with Nicholas Ludström, and we're raising a lot of money for it. But just that disease, the way it ended, is such an icon. This war hero, all the battles he went through, and then have to fight this terrible disease at the end. So he's definitely been in people's hearts in Sweden before his passing, and still is, and he's always going to be an icon over here.
I mentioned to someone earlier today that I was getting the chance to talk to you, and I regret that she couldn't be here for the interview because it sounded like she wanted to conduct it herself. And the first thing she asked is, "When's he going to come over here?" And I go, "Well, what do you mean? When's he going to come over here? He's going to do an event at the Hall of Fame. He's promoting the book." She's like, no. When's he going to work for the Leafs?
Yeah.
Have you ever been tempted into an NHL job in any capacity?
Well, first of all, I was very happy. I got invited by Brad Living to attend camp this year for a few days, be around the team and management, and being a coach and management and part of an NHL team organization, that's a 24/7 job. And I've been very blessed now having my kids after my career. I've been with them, watching them grow up, and but we'll see what happens in the future. The door's open, and we'll see what happens.
That's cool. That's great to hear. I think even just you being around would be very, very cool for a lot of those guys, because there's probably a lot of, I remember what I was like in my early 20s, and I knew nothing. And it's helpful to have people around that know something. So I hope we see you around a lot, like we saw Nick Antropov. Like we've seen him he's
still around.
He's around and being a part of it. It's awesome. Matt, I got to ask you about being a dad. Steve and I are younger fathers than yourself. Like I've got a 5.5-year-old. Steve has a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old. So he's not sleeping quite yet. What's it been like? What the challenge of being captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or the challenge of raising 3 kids? Which is harder?
Captain of the Leafs is easy.
So tell us about how much have you enjoyed stepping into that?
Oh, no, it's been great. Obviously, it's the thing you value most in life, your kids. And at the same time, as you guys know, the stage you guys are in, it's a lot of work too. Yeah. But it also made me reflect, and I talk about in the book. I have so much more respect for my own parents, what they went through with, me and my 2 brothers. And the support they gave us, and if I can give our kids half of the support my parents did to me and my brothers, I'll be happy, because, it's all about helping the kids and just supporting their dreams they have, whether it's playing piano or playing hockey or whatever it is. I'm going to try to be there and try to support them.
That's this. You just reminded me of one of my favorite visuals from the book, where I think it was your grandmother going outside. Because she's like, "Oh, you need a goalie? I'll be goalie." And she goes outside like wearing her kitchen apron and everything. Are you gonna wear like a barbecue apron or something out there? Put on like Cujo's old pads?
How do you look in goalie pads? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a goalie net down in the garage, and I have my son there. We're taking shots. I haven't been in net yet because we have real ball. But if he needs a goalie there, but then he can't shoot with real pucks. It has to be tennis balls or something soft.
Yeah, I understand that.
Matt, I also know that you've got a foundation, if I'm not mistaken, here with the Princess Margaret.
Yep.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah, and so I just, I don't think a lot of people know about that, and it fits with who you are, that you're not out there trumpeting it all the time. But that is a pretty major institution here in Toronto, and we have a lot of international listeners, a lot of people not from Toronto or not from Ontario listening. For anybody that doesn't know, it's one of the premier cancer centers in the world, and you're still involved with it. Can you tell us how you got involved and why you continue to be?
Yeah. So actually, I have a Canadian foundation, a Matt Sundin Fellowship, and it's founded with actually University of Toronto and the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. And I also have a friend. He's a Swedish professor. He's the head of the Princess Margaret Cancer Hospital. And so for me, it was easy. I had a long, fantastic career. I was fortunate to spend it all in Canada, in Toronto, Quebec, and Vancouver for a short time. But when I retired and I was able to, live my passion and be able to make money off of it. So I wanted to keep giving back to the city of Toronto where I played most of my career, also to Stockholm. So that's the collaboration. And I always enjoy visiting. I have my banner that used to hang at the Air Canada Centers, hanging in the Sick Kids Hospital today, which is great. So the connection is always going to be there, and be able to meet families, kids, adults that are going through tough times in life. It's very important for players too in the National Hockey League and for the Leafs. And I know the Toronto Maple Leafs still does a great job with that. It's a reality check when we talk about how serious hockey is, but at the same time, there's very important things going on in life that is out there. So it's very easy for me to be able to contribute and help out.
Well, Mats, we've taken up enough of your time, but I just want to say how much this has meant to us that you'd make time for us. We're looking forward to your Hall of Fame event with Steve coming up here. I think that's next week, isn't it?
21st.
So you're going to be in Toronto. And I just hope and while this book comes out, I hope that you're flooded with the gratitude that Leaf fans have for you, because honestly, you were, at least for our generation, we grew up with you. We all had your jersey. You meant a lot. And I hope that we see you as close to that team as humanly possible, knowing that you've got 3 kids at home to raise, because, the closer Matt Sundin is to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think the better off we all are.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.